Wake up, everybody. It's time for the History You Forgot podcast, the podcast where these three teachers with over 90 years of teaching experience catch you up on all the things you slept through when you were young. And guys, this might have been the era we were sleeping through. We're looking at and around 1989 and some of the amazing things that happened in the world. It's coming at you next. I'm Jason Schmoya.
I'm Jeff Breedlove.
And I'm Jason Jones. Welcome to the History You Forgot podcast. And like Jason said, we're going to look at 1989.
89.
And we got some of our favorite, or brought out some of our favorite
Favorite or
1980s
what we
drinks.
can afford.
Right.
So you guys are a little younger than I am. Because 89, I graduated college. So I was literally in high school in the early 80s and then college. So I mean, like,
we graduated in 89 from high school.
That's same thing.
So Mickey's Big Mouths are, we've got one of those out here for you. That's one of our favorites, I guess, from that era.
Favorites.
As I said, I'm questioning the word favorite.
Woo. Well, what was it?
But it does.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, the smell takes you back.
Yeah, that's true.
You'll notice there's a bottle here with none gone.
And it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah,
It's not. It's fine.
Terrible.
And then
get
the little Jägermeister here, right?
That's going to bring back some memories.
It's going to bring back. I mean, that smell alone. I'm going to pass on the drinking of it or the tasting to remind myself because. Yeah. No thanks.
So this is a fuzzy navel. A fuzzy navel is equal parts orange juice and peach schnapps with a cherry, and the cherry doesn't help.
Well,
I don't remember having a cherry in it most of the time.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
this is so bad.
Cherries.
And any drink that you've enjoyed that has any kind of sexual innuendo is probably from the 80s.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So I wanted to.
They all had orange juice.
Oh yeah, I wanted to read this too. I think this is great. This is from Difford's Guide. Difford's Guide is something we use like for recommendations for cocktails for the podcast and stuff. Literally, when you get to the 80s cocktails, the first line in the explanation, there's no glossing over it. The 1980s were grim for cocktail culture. And their list of things that you have to have in your 80s cocktail starts with a name of plenty of sexual innuendo.
There you go.
So slippery nipple.
Yeah,
lots of them.
Yeah, you're making me blush, Mr. Schmuck.
I know. I won't go that far. Can we say sex on the beach? That was one.
You just did?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's not
I guess it was big permission.
That's right.
For some reason, I'm having a flashback. My parents drank like a lot of Kahlua. Like it was kind of a liqueur drinking. I don't know why, but I remember their bar with like homemade Kahlua.
You're right.
But just everything had a bright color.
Oh, what?
Everything had a bright color.
Yeah.
Everything had orange juice or a fruit juice.
Some kind of juice.
Remember wine coolers? Wine
Purple Passion.
So I tried to find wine coolers. I even went to the liquor store. By the way, Fox Hill Wine Spirits are sponsors, and I don't think they make them because nobody.
Right.
I get Bartles and James, California Cooler. What unless it was in like Zima, something like that. Right?
What was the line from the Bartles and James commercial? Those two old guys sitting on the porch.
You know.
Thanks for watching.
Minutes. Something like that. Yeah.
We'll have to find it. Look at
it. That was.
Thanks for buying. Like, and once again, right? Something like, and once again, thanks for buying. Or something like that.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and
I'm gonna lid this.
Put the lid up because you know what? I don't want to drink these. This is a great celebration of 80s cocktail culture, but
let's do it.
Let's cheers with something that we can
cheers to the
episode and wake up tomorrow morning with
it. Go to work. But I think I don't know where we are happens to be in the 90s today. So I was thinking it's kind of nice to have a nice summer malt liquor. Summer Jägermeister. That's what I say. A good summer malt liquor.
A good summer malt.
Shots always remind me of summer. Right?
You didn't know you'd ever want to. All right, so are we done? Is that it? Is that the end of the podcast?
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
All right, 1989, right?
Nice.
So we did 1968. last time. So we thought naturally the sort of these year of revolution, 68, things that happened in 89 were just as tumultuous, if not more so for the world. So we thought we'd start with that. So Mr. Jones, you're going to start us, or I can start it.
I can start us. I mean, if you think about 89, that's when you're getting Mikhail Gorbachev as the leader of the Soviet Union. And if you remember in our 68 discussion, we talked a lot about the Cold War, right? And the different things that were going on with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs and all these different things, MAD, right? Mutual assured destruction and all these kinds of things. And so Mikhail Gorbachev gets elected and
in 85, actually.
Yeah, in 85.
So a little context for you.
Yeah, sure, and then 89, as he and President Reagan become closer friends,
right.
You start to see the Soviet Union might not like the word softening, but I'm going to use the word softening with some different things that are going on.
Well, I think the election of Gorbachev by itself represents, remember there was a 2 or 3 year period where they went through like 2 85-year-old men, like with Yuri and Dropov, Chernenko, who they elected in their 80s or 90s.
Who were, just...
Right. Who were
just half dead on camera.
The black
but still tried to be the hard line.
Oh, absolutely.
Hard line. And then they died, each of them died like within months or, a year of getting elected. And so Gorbachev, I remember, he's young. He's probably like younger than our age now.
Well, and if you remember the Saturday Night Live skits at that time, he had that birthmark on his forehead. And they portrayed that very well. And in Saturday Night
But he was a breath of fresh air. He had a PhD in economics.
Yeah.
His wife was equally educated and sharp and dressed more Western than they did, right? It was a definite shift, even in just sort of a tone.
Yeah. Well, the Soviet Union, glasnost is a term that you heard, and that was really just a transparency, more of a transparency to the rest of the world of what they were doing, governmentally, militarily, economically. Perestroika, was another, a term, and that was their economic reform, right? And then you're going to have a shift from a communist style of economy to more of a democratic, capitalistic style, which a lot of people didn't like. Some economic struggle, I guess I would say, for a lot of people in the Soviet Union. And Jeff, you're going to have to say it.
Is Democrat. Right? It's just but I think the key here is that even though it didn't become capitalist and democratic, I think, Gorbachev has said himself, he never wanted what happened to happen, right? He didn't foresee the end of the USSR or the end of communism. It was one of these kind of you give people an inch of reform, and then plus all the CNN had opened a headquarters in Moscow. And
I know the Soviet Union fell, but you could argue, if you look at it today, it's still probably more communist than capitalist, right? It's still probably more government control compared to...
It's definitely capitalist. But an autocratic dictatorship, I guess, with capital. With an autocracy or an oligarchy.
Free trade for a few?
That's what I mean. I just, so you had... And if you look at history, whether it be Germany after World War I, or you pick the time where a democratic government, Russia after World War I, where a democratic government came in and tried to rule a group of people that for maybe hundreds of years have known nothing but a king or a czar, and then trying to become hey, Jason, you go start your own business, and Jeff, you become a farmer and farm your own land, and now you're trying to make money for yourself and not being told what to do. It's people struggle,
and huge. As much as you want it, the reality of it is always way more difficult than the idea of it, right? But I think there's, you probably remember. I remember in high school, and Levi's jeans in Russia became sort of a hot commodity. Billy Joel, and Billy Joel went in '87 to make a concert, and then was it not Iron Maiden, but some, this one, some heavy metal.
Well, 91, the Scorpions.
Who was the big German or something. So there was this openness, this glass.
But there's a great cover on a Newsweek magazine. Gosh, it might have been 1989 or close. But there's a great cover on Newsweek magazine. People were allowed to meet there was it Red Square?
Red Square.
And they were holding up a Newsweek magazine because they were actually able to receive some of that Western stuff that they couldn't receive before. And they had moments of free speech. Right. And that was a big perestroika. Was that Glasnost? Glasnost was
Glasnost. Yeah, but I think also remember, 79, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we're talking about a decade-long war that has not gone well for the Soviet Union. So along with this openness, and you've got a lot of people, a lot of angry people about a war that the Soviet Union is losing, partially to the aid of the due to that U.S. aid of the Afghan rebels. But so I think, people began to protest the idea of the war, which then kind of started the whole ball rolling. And then all these events that we're going to talk about, eventually sort of trigger.
That was kind of the last proxy for us, wasn't it? Really, before the Soviet Union fell, was that Afghanistan war, and it went.
Yeah, they pulled out of Afghanistan at the beginning of '89, and then the whole thing just.
You could argue. I think I've heard people say this too. Like, you could argue that Afghanistan was the Soviets' Vietnam.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and of course we aided that. And I'm just going to throw this in here because it has to be thrown in for a later episode. But like classic. Enemy of my enemy is my friend, where we're supplementing with money, weapons, and training the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan, one of whom was a Saudi financier named Osama bin Laden. Turned out to not be so much of a friend.
And then whose weapons eventually, when the U.S. invades Afghanistan, those weapons are then used against U.S. soldiers, right? That can get into them. There's even a movie. Right, like a Tom Hanks movie or something. Charlie something.
Charlie. Oh, yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, something. Well, again,
people are yelling it right now.
Right? Put it in the comments.
But I mean,
Charlie Wilson's
there we go.
You can relate that even to today a little bit, right? Because we're seeing with the situation that is going on in the world today that people we think might be our friends are aiding our enemies. So
you always like to bring it up, don't you? Bring it a little bit.
You know what? I know we all teach this. We try to connect dots for students, and
But I think that the election of Gorbachev is important too, because, and you can speak better than as I can, but not only is it Gorbachev who took a breath, but in '80, right, you have Reagan, you have Thatcher in '81. So there is a revolution of sorts politically across the spectrum.
That would be the context leading up to this from the U.S. Really, it's not just the U.S. The Western world was going through kind of a conservative movement, right? Thatcher in, I think, 79.
Was it
early? And then Reagan, November of 1980, was elected, and they both were promising to shrink government and increase the capitalist kind of agenda. And what we're talking about was getting tough against communism.
Was Thatcher the first female prime minister in Britain?
Yes.
That's what I thought. And so even though she's a tough conservative, it's kind of a liberal move in the country, right? With the first female.
Being for a woman.
First female.
I would argue that if you go back.
Interesting.
Oh, just a thought.
She was
very conservative.
I mean, the story I always remember is that the Iron Lady, like we were just talking about this, is that the night before some like conservative party, Tory party speech, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, which is part of, going on at the same time, tries to assassinate her by blowing up a hotel by putting a bomb, and they got the floor wrong. So it blew up like the hotel room beneath her or two beneath her, right? But like 3 people died and the hotel was destroyed. She survived. And then she, at 6 o'clock in the morning, right, she gets up and she makes the speech. I mean, she's like, it's not your typical like British politician at the time, right?
My favorite Thatcher moment was the Falkland Island War,
right?
If you remember, here's this little set of islands off of Argentina, thousands of miles away, and Argentina invades it, takes it. They don't think Britain cares enough to do anything about it, and she sends the Royal Navy and goes down there and stomps on them and takes it. And you brought up Newsweek, and for all you Star Wars fans, Empire Strikes Back was the headline on the Newsweek.
I remember that,
and so
that's great.
But Reagan and she had promised a revolution. And part of that was going to be the evil empire. I mean, they were going to stomp out communism.
I'm trying to remember the actor and actress that were always paired up that they compared Thatcher and Reagan to. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
But was it
Gene Wilder?
Bogart to Bacall, maybe, I think, or
really?
something like that. I've heard people refer to them as the two, stars that were aligned, because they were tag teaming, and they took that tough, response against the Soviets,
which then eventually invites Gorbachev.
Yeah. So Gorbachev comes to the United States and actually visits and is treated kind of like a star. Gorbachev was not liked in Russia. He was not liked in the Soviet Union. And a lot of these reforms sound great to us, and we teach and tell the story like it's good.
Right.
I don't think it was so much to them. But that's the lead up to the end. But the truth is, by 1989, Ronald Reagan's leaving.
He's gone, yeah.
But he set the stage. Thatcher, this whole conservative thing in the United States, at least set the stage for some of this, foreign policy stuff that I think is super interesting. He defined the Cold War, right, in the evil empire.
Right.
The Soviet Union was the evil empire.
Right.
We need to, and this is after all that détente, right? Nixon, Ford, Carter, during the 60s and 70s, we were trying to make nice and make peace and be friends, and Reagan was like, screw that.
Yeah.
And I can remember as a kid, so regardless what you think of this from a political perspective, I can remember as a kid in grade school, we thought Reagan was freaking Superman. We thought he was coming in and saving the day.
Assassination attempt, he survives. I mean,
Right.
And he's an older gentleman at the time. He was like 71 or 2 when he was elected.
Wasn't he like the oldest to be elected at the time?
I think before.
Survived an assassination attempt.
Right.
He's got the famous speech about the wall coming down.
Yeah.
Mr. Gorbachev.
Tear down that wall. Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of these last kind of president, not last, but he's one of these presidents who is enigmatic and charismatic, right? I mean, people are drawn to him for personality. I think, he probably his greatest strength, at least he surrounded himself with really brilliant people who thought like he did.
And he was an actor. So he could get up there and portray a character, if you will, right? And
the great
Jeff's favorite movie, Remember the Gipper. Right.
Wonder why it's my favorite movie.
But he was called the great communicator.
Yeah.
And he did. He had that. He knew how to get in front of a TV and do the thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we've got some good context, but also, as we get to 89.
Yeah, we got to get there, right?
I know. So we've got a new pope. And it's important that we got a new pope. One, because he's a reformer pope, but also because he's Polish, right? So we have to remember that's kind of the key. And he's going to speak out a lot against communism, since Poland is under communist reign at this time. Yeah. And that's going to, 1 billion Catholics are going to hear that message. And so that's important. We've got a new leader in China. Years earlier, but by 1989, the world has shifted already a lot.
Deng Xiaoping becoming the, what do they call it? Premier in 1979, but he instituted economic reforms. Now, the difference between China and the Soviets, which is super interesting, is while he instituted economic reforms and brought slowly but surely, province by province, open market concepts into China, he did not open up socially or politically. So, funny enough, that worked. Right. The China and the Communist Party was able to stay in power and, in fact, grow because the economy grew.
Right.
But the political and social controls were still there and are to this day.
That's still.
But that created the China by 1989 that we know of, like, holy cow, they're growing.
Because in Hong Kong, a decade later, right, they get Hong Kong back. And it's just all uphill.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're going to talk about Tiananmen Square. So we can see that.
That's 89.
And one other thing maybe we should mention is Chernobyl. And I've not to take a step back, but to move forward.
It is context,
but one of the things about Chernobyl, if you guys that are listening remember, here's one of kind of the first big nuclear disasters.
Yeah. And
you've got Russia, who doesn't let anybody in, doesn't tell anybody anything. And you have this nuclear meltdown. And this big cloud of nuclear stuff rolls out over Europe, and then you have a rainstorm, and it affects crops and other things in other countries, and Russia has to kind of come clean. And it's really the first time that they kind of say, okay, we could use some support here, with the rest of the world.
And they built a giant chafing dish to cover it, right? And now we've got, horror movies based around it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that definitely is a sign.
Right.
So I think that brings it, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to also, you brought up Poland and the solidarity movement in Poland.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect a
good
segue, right? Yeah. So
transition.
we've got our context, right? We clearly, the world in the 80s, I remember it like it's a daily thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something happening all the time that is new and it's like odd. And I remember being of age that you're like always worried about, is someone going to bring us to a nuclear war still, right? And like,
because that
going to have to serve. I mean, all that is still real. And then 1989, it is a waterfall of crazy, once in a lifetime events that I think the thing about it, remember, is one, because I was probably graduated college, but it was live in real time. Like as you're watching it, it's happening. And then the next day something else happened. And you're like literally able to put your finger on it and just draw a line every month.
To sort of pin this against what we did with 1968. It's as tumultuous, but yet it felt positive. Like this is such a more.
That's a good point.
Even though some of it did not ever come to fruition, some of the things we thought were amazing about it has at least a more positive feel. Equally
the idea that it could be more positive.
But the potential of it was so much greater.
Well, just like the solidarity movement in Poland, you've got a guy named like Wałęsa, right? Who is like a plumber, isn't he? I mean, he's
a ship worker.
Yeah, I mean, he's
shipyard.
Yeah, I mean, he's an
electrician.
But he leads this movement. Right. I think he's still alive today. I think he's 82, 83. I think he's still alive today.
Don't know. It's good.
But
could be the director of Homeland Security.
Yeah. But he's going to lead this solidarity. But that's okay. And here's a country that's a part of the Iron Curtain. Here's a country that's trying to get its own footing again in the world and not be so controlled by the Soviet Union. And with the things that are happening with the Soviet Union in the late 80s, that's kind of going to happen for a lot of those countries in the that buffer zone.
Yeah, I think the key is that it's a labor union. Communism, there are no labor unions, right? So the fact that initially, like for a long time, it wasn't even recognized as an and then as the softening of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev, I remember distinctly, isn't rolling tanks into Warsaw, right? I mean, as these protests and as these shifts and as the Gdansk shipyard and the solidarity grows, the change isn't like to crush it. The change is, well, we're going to let you guys figure it out.
Yeah. They would have rolled the tanks in 10 years earlier.
Well, they did in 68.
Right. Remember Hungary in the 50s and Czechoslovakia in 68.
So everybody expected, like held their breath, that at some point the Soviet Union is going to have to end. Right. I mean, that was because that's the history of it.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to throw it out there because I found it interesting because you brought up Pope John Paul II, a Polish Pope.
Most Poland is Catholic, so
right?
It's kind of important.
But when our new Pope was current Pope was brought to power, if you will, from Chicago, I read an article that said that they a lot of times the Catholic Church names a Pope from a country that has struggles going on.
Oh, it's a political,
and I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that is. It's a statement.
Yeah. If that is that. Exactly true, or would they admit that? I don't know.
Oh, no. I think it absolutely
that sounds like I've heard that.
Yeah, no, I have too. I think that it's how the Catholic Church takes a stand without coming out in a stand.
Taking a stand,
Making, and the Pope has, a lot of soft power.
Yeah.
Right? People travel to meet him. He's welcomed everywhere, right? His words matter.
Yeah. So
to most.
So as we see these Iron Curtain countries, right, gaining their own independence, isn't this also the year that the Soviets pull out of Afghanistan?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you already brought up Afghanistan, Jason, and the Vietnam resemblance for the United States, but it's an ugly 10 years, and they're pulling out,
which is crazy because that's something no one thought they would see.
Right.
I mean, admitting defeat,
and kind of throwing their hands up a little bit, at some of this,
which is Gorbachev,
Hungary.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't want to jump too far yet, but that seems like I think we're in that mode.
What's happening is, that, as you remember, that like the events is that there's these little momentous pop-ups, and then there's another momentous pop-up, and then there's another momentous, and it just keeps snowballing. So Hungary actually early, like March or April, opens up like 150 miles of the fence, the little barbed wire fence that separates them between them and Austria for trade reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, hey, we need to open this up. But of course, people living on the other side of the Iron Curtain, you see an open border. And so all of a sudden, people start flocking like they fly within the Warsaw Pact, right? So people leave East Germany and other places, fly to Prague for vacation.
Yeah.
And then fleeing across the border, right? Yeah. And then Prague does it, and then the East Germans like let people fly to Prague, and then they say you can't fly to Prague, and so then all of a sudden there's these huge protests in like Leipzig, and because the East Germans are refusing to allow people, so Hungary then opens up more, and again everybody's expecting the Soviet Union to roll in with tanks, and Gorbachev is just like, we got our own problems. Yeah. I mean, we're not coming to your aid or to destroy it. Like, you got to figure it out.
And at this point, they're struggling economically.
Absolutely.
They being the Soviet Union.
Well, everybody. I mean, the whole block.
Region.
Right. Yeah.
Block.
So I think it's important that, because I remember a little anecdotal thing, this all happened so quickly too, that we're going to talk about the fall right here with East Germany, is I traveled to Europe, and I was in Berlin in September, August of that year, backpacking, college student. And I had to cross through Checkpoint Charlie, and we had to go through the demilitarized zone, and it was still as late as August. I mean, it was scary. I mean, it was still a formidable symbol, right? That there was no sign when I was there that it was
ending
anything.
Yeah.
And then for 3 months later to be like, oh, I guess it's done now, right?
Yeah,
You're like, what? I mean, so I think that's also
and for those of us, I'm sorry. For those of us who lived through the wall watching down and all that stuff, that was on TV. We watched it. I mean, now,
remember the mistake that the East German guy makes on TV, like to open up the wall?
I don't.
Oh my gosh! Again, I'm sorry, and then I'll be done.
No, it's okay.
Keep going. It's great.
The East German leadership, Eric Honecker, is kind of a hardliner, right? And he's an old cranky, and it's not working. And the protests are getting bigger and bigger and bigger in these cities. And then Gorbachev comes, and everybody looks to Gorbachev for like, what do we do? What do we do? And again, he says, I don't know, figure it out. And of course, the people then take that as like, so Eric Honecker, the hardliner, is ousted. Sure. And they bring in, Erdogan Krenz, who is still a communist, but supposed to be a little like lighter on the, heavy-weighted. And then November 8th or something like that, they opened up travel to Prague again.
Yeah. Right.
So now it's a little freer. And then Gunter Szymanski, I'll never forget. I mean, I still show it. He's the, Minister of Information or whatever. He sits down at a press conference at like 9:00 at night, and he's reading the daily sort of party bulletin. And at some point he's like, travel to West Berlin will be open. Right? He's like reading a memo.
Wait, stop.
And somebody in the audience is, the press corps is like, wait, go back to
Did you say that?
Right. Did you say? And he goes, well, yeah, I guess it is. And it wasn't intended to be like now or anything. It was the thought was, but he has no idea. So he says, he was really, well, I guess it's starting now. And people in West Germany heard it because they're listening to it. And immediately everybody flocks to the checkpoint.
Yeah, and remember, families have been divided for years. Friends have been divided for years. And
it's like the biggest gaffe ever. He says that thing.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is important to point out, too, is the Soviets put almost no money into East Berlin and East Germany, and the West had put a lot of money into West Berlin and West Germany. And so they're totally different lifestyle and
you can see it.
You can see it there. Yeah. Right. And so, now that you say that, I do kind of remember that. And I don't know if this is correct or not, guys, but I feel like, I was in high school, so I feel like I watched the wall come down on MTV. Oh, they were there. I know they were there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I show a clip that David Hasselhoff has a concert at the wall.
That's as bad as Fuzzy Nick.
Yeah, right. I mean, he was huge in Germany I guess because his name is German.
Oh, man.
He had like a song called Freedom or something, and he performs it in a best 80s moment ever, in a black leather jacket with white flashing, blinking lights in a cherry picker. He lip syncs this song. But I think that, I'm sorry, go.
No, just two things come to mind with that. how oblivious I was to it because I was a senior in high school, freshman leading, this was my transition from high school. Yes, exactly. But just, I really, truly was. I knew what was going on and it was a cool feeling. Right. But I was just really maybe I might have missed how monumental that was.
Yeah.
The other thought I have is how interesting it is that in that East Germany, when all this quick slippery slope was happening, there's a young Vladimir Putin who's stationed there, who is pissed.
Good point.
Yeah.
Just something to keep in the back pocket. Yeah, keep in the back pocket for a future episode because he's there.
And just one other East German, West German thing. I just remember the Olympics when there was an East and West Germany and just how
GDR.
Oh yeah. I mean, it just, and I always, every time a East German came out, they were usually really good.
Yeah.
They
state-sponsored athletics.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it was just, I don't know, but it was
all
like
the Eastern Bloc. Yeah. I mean, the Czech and Romanian gymnasts over Corbett, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people,
they bred their athletes.
They were literally, and the Olympics was definitely an East, an us, them.
Yeah. It was a Rocky Drago thing.
I think maybe
yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Rocky Drago. That's a perfect example. But I think not to like your age just enough, right? So I graduated in '89, and I think what stuck up for me is I probably have the $100,000 education shot to hell. But I have my degree is in international relations with an emphasis in like Soviet policy. Right. I mean, like that's what, that's my concentration is like Eastern relations.
Yeah.
And I got that in May of '89.
Yeah.
And in October, November, the wall comes down. There is no East-West divide.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union collapses in 91. So there's no more Soviet Union. So I literally have a degree that specializes in everything in a 50-year period that no longer exists.
You're kind of like that outdated map.
I am. I'm like just put me on the wall.
The Rand McNally.
That's right. The Rand McNally.
I love that out. I'm like the outdated map. I am, but I remember I think that's why, because I knew this, I watched this all happen. It just was very present that the world that I just spent 4 years specializing in is no longer.
That's interesting.
Right. Because that my minor in like, what is it, French, got me really far.
That's too funny.
But I think, Jason, I mean, if you talk about, like, was it Romania's next? But then Tiananmen Square is the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the scary moment. That's when you realize that communism isn't just going away, right? There was this, between 1989 and 1991, what happened in the Soviet Union was breathtaking. I mean, the speed with which the world decided that's not a thing. But China, they held power. They maintained it. And starting in 1989, where you have student protests, you thought, okay, well, maybe there's a hope that communism in China could follow the same suit as it does in Europe. It does not at all.
Well, and worse. I mean, it doesn't.
And they crushed it, and they denied that they crushed it.
And they still, you still can't get the whole story.
And Tiananmen was another thing we watched on TV.
Again, yes.
Right? I mean, we talked about that.
Because they were all there, right?
Yeah, we talked about that with 68, the Vietnam War. That's kind of when everything just...
Well, I think the protests lasted like weeks and weeks, right? So, I mean, there are tens of thousands of students there for weeks, which is why so everybody knew something was going to happen.
But that connects that dot, right? 79, Deng Xiaoping comes to power, economic reforms. People loved him. He traveled to the United States in the late 70s to visit and learn, wore the 10-gallon hat. Here's this 5-foot guy with a 10-gallon hat. And Americans loved him. And then this. Right. And then you see the real face in 1989.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, and everyone expected, it's going to go the same way. We're going to see an open China and like
not so much.
And for those of you who don't remember Tiananmen Square, the big highlight moment, if you want to call it's probably the wrong word, right? But was this student standing out in the square with 3 or 4 Chinese tanks bearing down on him.
They call him Tank Man.
Yeah. And he didn't move and they didn't stop.
No.
And then finally he's like pulled aside by a bunch of students. Like, I don't think they actually ran it.
I thought they ran over him.
In my brain, they ran over him.
But in my brain, I wonder if I just made that figure it out.
We're gonna
in my brain, I remember that eventually I thought he was like disappeared after, but he may have actually.
I'm not sure.
You may be right. I
thought he ran over.
Yeah. You think 2-1 here. I don't know.
Well, I'm not positive now.
I just
I'd
always
have to look, but that was
I would have. I guess in my brain, if they had really rolled over him, wouldn't we have seen that?
Well, I thought we did see him get rolled over, but we didn't see the smush on the ground for lack of a better way to say.
He was on a Wile E. Coyote moment.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say,
sorry, man.
Right.
Yeah, no, I
but I don't know.
We're gonna have to look it up.
But I mean, they opened fire. On the students. I mean, there's no question. And I have heard estimates of thousands of students are killed, but we don't hear anything about it, right? It's like the next day it's cleaned up and it's gone, right? I mean,
because that's that hardline communism where they don't let people in, they don't let Western media in, they keep everything to themselves.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's a good summary of the year, right? I mean, you can kind of see all this is going on, but I think, like you were talking about earlier, right? The difference between 68 and 89 is the impact.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what happens maybe not in 89, but directly after or as a result of, right? So, I mean, like,
certainly for us, there's a sense of promise, right? There's this concept that things are going to be positive. And I think in some ways they were, but in some ways we fell short of those goals, right?
I would even argue, Jason, that we felt like we beat the Soviet Union.
Absolutely. By 91 for sure. By 91 for sure.
So I'm curious, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. So when you say that there are certain ways in which, I mean, I'm not stepping on, U.S., but like,
no.
What are there certain things that stand out in your mind that the U.S. like was hopeful and we dropped the ball on?
No, I think what I would say is that, okay, so in 1989, you have the George H.W. Bush presidency. He watches the Berlin Wall fall. He's able to see the former Soviet republics hold free elections and decide not to follow with the Soviet Union. Russia becomes its own, federation at that point in time. And Bush talks about the New World Order. And the New World Order proposes that the United States is the new unipolar hegemonic power, and we're going to lead the world and democracy will rule. You have, I cannot remember this guy's name, something Fukuyama, right?
The author.
Yeah, the author, Fukuyama. And anyway, what he writes is that this is the end of history and that there will be no more nationalism is dead.
Yeah.
And that the, democracy will rule. It's like the promise of that. Look, you're not going to live up to that. I'm not saying we turned on that by any stretch, but I think we failed to meet those lofty expectations. By being,
I think that's the only way to put it. That 89 left us with lofty expectations.
Yeah.
Regardless of what side you're on, right? I think that's kind of, but I mean, but in a nutshell, like the wall comes down.
You're right.
Yeah. Like, so the symbol.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
No,
I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
that to me, 89 is there were two superpowers. There's still two superpowers after 89, but there is a leader.
Yeah.
Right? We and I think that's when the U.S. feels like we're the leader in this world.
Yeah.
And not just in democracy, but just in general.
Yeah. If you think about it, though, moving forward, it creates some real gray territory for us. Like, okay, now we've spent how many decades with communism as the enemy?
Yeah.
Now who's bad? Who's good? What's good? Where do we intervene? I mean, let's be honest, the 8 years of Bill Clinton, and I'm not for or against Bill Clinton, but his foreign policy was all over the place because he didn't have that thing.
There wasn't an enemy, black box out there, right?
And we sort of flailed a little bit to try to figure out, okay, what's our role?
Well, like you said, you spent trillions of dollars in 50 years of your, guess one thing.
Well, he was the second or third president to try to do peace in the Middle East or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
right about that.
Those kinds of things. So,
but I think, the wall, the symbol, right, of it coming down, everybody has a piece of it, right? I mean, there's they mailed them around the world. I think that becomes this sort of iconic, versus 68, I'm trying to think if there's an iconic moment, right? The ball coming down, like you said, everyone's watching it happen. The guys on the pickaxes.
Yeah.
Right? And,
yeah.
I mean, and now if you go to Berlin, there's still, Germany's going to have to come to grips with a really, a past that's painful.
Yeah.
The split and all that kind of stuff. And an economic situation where how do you incorporate, because they're going to unify in 90.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to reunify in 90. And you've got, like you said, an East German economy that is just in the crapper and a West German economy that's blowing lid off stuff. And now they're going to have to absorb and fix.
Yeah.
I mean, plus, not to jump ahead too much, but I mean, as an impact, Gorbachev isn't going to last much longer, right? The Russian people are, well, actually, Russian hardliners are going to try to overthrow him.
Yeah,
I remember that when he's at his dacha and and then you get the typical Soviet like playing of the march songs, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's dead."
Yeah. Well, and could you argue that 89 is the start of the end of the Cold War, or it's the end of the Cold War?
I think there's no doubt about it.
By 91, it's over.
Between 89 and 91, and that's amazing to think about how entrenched we were in that bipolar world, and to think that in 2 years, and so in international relations, we talk about constructivism, which is a theory that you think about ideas, how people think, and that's an interesting study, because why did it only take 2 years for people to decide that whole entire structure was just not worth it? It's really interesting, because the Roman Empire took forever to fall,
right?
But yet the Soviet Union and the concept of communism fell, or at least that version of the concept of communism fell really pretty quick.
I read somewhere, again, I don't know where, but I apologize, but there's so much of this can be chalked up to the immediacy of information, right? Like in the Roman Empire, 1,500 years ago, you didn't know about something that's happening in Rome.
Yeah.
Right. But we, like you said, we were watching this.
Yeah.
Like, and not just like, I remember, 68 or whatever, when they're doing the Vietnam War, they're showing you snippets from like the day or the week. But there are now cameras that are watching it unfold. And so the violence you see of Tiananmen Square, you see the wall being going down.
The other thing you had in 89, by that time, you did have the 24-hour news cycle. So it was on all day long.
Yeah. Right. And they got to fill time with something.
Yeah.
Right. See Ted Turner.
There's so many, because you said that, Jeff. You said the image. There's so many more images in my mind, obviously, because I was alive in 89. But if you think about 68, I think of the picture of them pointing at the hotel where King was killed.
Absolutely.
And I think of maybe some video footage of Tet.
Yeah, maybe some Chicago,
or maybe
Chicago,
or maybe Kennedy getting assassinated.
Yeah,
Robert. That's it, definitely.
But it just seems like there are that many more. And I wonder if it's because, I don't know, 89 again. 89 kind of seemed like it was in our favor. 68 seemed like we were falling. 89 seemed like we might rise again.
That's a great way to put it.
Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. I also think there's a couple other things that, 89 that eventually pan out, right? Is that a year or two later, at 90, we're going to get an EU, right? The European Union is going to form and choose to, and then, but now that raises all sorts of immigration questions, right? And how do we deal with immigration? The internet, the World Wide Web, in 89. I know, Tim Berners-Lee or whatever comes up with that idea. I mean, it's been around in the military, but the World Wide Web is going to, I mean, there's things like that 89, you're like, no.
Do you remember the first time you saw a computer that was online?
Then I saw a computer
online.
I mean, like
on the web, logged in on the web.
Yep. My dial-up modem.
But I do remember my first computer lab. It was in college.
Mine was in high school, but they were literally keyboards to a black and white TV screen.
Yeah,
and you just.
Yeah, my first computer lab, we actually called them word processing labs because all you did was type your papers.
Yeah.
You couldn't look anything up. The old.
I remember one because I went to college in '86 that a roommate and myself, we shared like a room, whatever. We bought a computer together, a Mac, right? Because it was the cutting edge leading thing. And at the time, this is no joke. We paid like $2,500 for it, which even now is a lot of money. But then I remember it was like a ton of money. It came and it had this case that was this big, but the screen was only this big, and all it did was word process.
Yeah,
that it was a fancy typewriter. Right, that made it. I mean, I still took a typewriter to college.
Yeah. Well, so So
sorry about that.
We're starting to go down a rabbit hole, but let's get back to the impact.
We need to get back.
Let's get back to the impact of this
is also the impact.
Well, it was our impact, right? But like worldwide impact. This is when we start to see China really step forward on the world stage, and become more of a I don't know if a military power yet, but definitely scary enough that we were, we're paying attention.
And we still should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the turning point, it's interesting to look at 89-ish as a turning point. And again, I kind of keep coming, I don't mean to be the pessimist. I really don't mean to be the pessimist, but I keep coming back to the promise was so great. And the outcome had to be a little bit disappointing, right? Like where we are right now is not where we thought we would be.
35 years.
Are you talking
And
about?
I'm not talking politically. That's not a commentary on partisanship at all. It's just a global commentary.
Like you're talking about as the United States,
as a world,
or as a world. Okay.
The idea of
Global.
democracy,
the idea that, that democracy had won and people will thrive because the Cold War,
capitalism won.
Yeah, right. And it's not that way, right? Nationalism certainly the hell wasn't dead.
Yeah, clear.
Right. It's alive and well now, as we see all over the world, just things like that. And it's kind of interesting. Like I still kind of get goosebumps when we talk about that time period, because I remember how exciting it seemed for everybody, even though I was a little bit clueless and off that loop. But like, I don't know. It's weird.
Well, we still wonder if you're really paying attention.
Wait. I'm not sure. Are these microphones on right now?
No,
that was just like nodding.
I guess I'm glad you clarified, because while I was listening to you, I was thinking you're talking about the United States, but you're talking about the world. And how the world has been impacted by 89 and what happened in 89. And so I'm really glad you clarified that. I think that's important for the people listening, because I think we all thought democracy was, we'd won. Democracy had won. The Soviet Union's in a tailspin. But then you saw 89 with China, and then you're like, well, maybe not, right?
Exactly.
But look at all the Iron Curtain states becoming democracies. Well, maybe they aren't really. And so.
Well, and it did not take long for the old Balkans to break back into genocide and restart the whole thing.
There's an impact right there.
Yeah.
Right? Without the Soviet Union to keep it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
They do turn ugly pretty quickly in some places, without a doubt. Well,
I think it's your turn to tell us who you'd have a drink with, isn't it?
You thought about it, have you? Because I don't know. That is an easy answer.
Okay, good.
No, it is an easy answer for me. And this is going to be kind of really out there, but it's John Paul II.
Interesting.
And not because I was, some big fan or raised, necessarily to think that, but
you are a Notre Dame grad.
I am. I was raised Catholic, right? So
yeah.
And I did go to. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
That's a brag moment. You got to take it. You got to take it when you get it.
But again, I ended up with a degree. Awesome. And I ended up teaching. And that's not a slam on anything at all. But, people don't assume that you go to a school like that and come out. But it was a different world, different time.
Yes,
right? It wasn't
for sure
at all the same.
I'm gonna just tell you, teaching is admirable.
Without pressure. That's what I'm saying. I'm not at all saying that it's like not the place you think you should go.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to come out at Harvard and whatever.
Right.
Not that I'm. God, I sound like a jackass. No, but the reason because there's all that speculation, right, around the death of John Paul I, right? Maybe too much of a reformer and was actually murdered by an inside thing. John Paul II is the first pope who actually is able to kind of throw his weight around politically that we see, right? I mean, so many other popes have this sort of dark aura over them. Like, I didn't say anything about the Holocaust. I didn't do things about, like communism. And he does things.
Yeah.
And he's very vocal and he's very adamant and he travels the world. I mean, he's like, I think the most isn't the last one.
Isn't that when the Pope Mobile kind of comes?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so it's, and like I said, it's not because of the Catholicism. It's the, he always had to put the Pope on a global, politically, globally significant, socially, cultural moment, right? Being Polish, and I would love to have known, like, did he do this out of his own hatred of communism because he grew up under it? Did he do it because he wanted to convince the world's Catholics? I mean, like, was it
he's the first Pope I remember.
Yeah,
he was active. He was vocal. So my grandmother's second husband, not my grandfather, but my grandmother's actually third husband, but that's okay.
Whole separate podcast.
was a Polish man.
Oh,
and when that all went down, we talked about the Pope.
Yeah.
And he was active. He was out there. He was kind of cosmopolitan, wasn't he?
Without a doubt.
He was all over the place. And so, I think you're right. It made a huge impact.
Yeah, and I think there's so many people at that time. I mean, clearly you could go through all of these political leaders, but I don't know, there's just something I would love to, maybe it's my fascination with all the conspiracies around, like, the Catholic Church and the Vatican. Maybe a little insight, have it, liquor them up a little bit and have them, tell me what's really in the Vatican file or something, right? But I don't know. I mean, do you have somebody that automatically could be like,
I think John Paul.
We're alive. I think this is
John Paul II's a great one. I think it'd be interesting to talk to President Reagan. I think it'd be like Lewinsky. Thatcher. I mean,
this would be a dinner party kind of.
Right. You could invite,
there are some choices.
half a dozen people. I mean, there'd be a lot of people you'd want to invite.
Yeah, very good party.
I like to think of that random unnamed person, like somebody who lived in East Germany that got to then move to West Germany, and that experience of like knocking down the wall and climbing it and all that. That'd be cool. Just to sit and
or a
pick
kid at Tiananmen Square. Somebody who lived it.
Someone who's still alive.
Right. Yeah. But it's a good point. An East German.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a new day.
Yes.
So I guess we have to come up with a topic for next time.
What's next? Yeah.
We appreciate your comments. So we've gotten a few of them. So I think if we could ask you to not only follow us on all of our socials, right? Facebook, Spotify, and
go to Fox Hill and buy
Please go to
Fox Hill Wine and Spirits.
Yeah, we need to make
without
sure.
Without a doubt, over and over again, they've
been really good to us.
They're doing a great job, and thank you very much. But I think we'll have to come up with something that, I don't know, maybe we'll go back.
I'm going to throw an idea out there, but maybe the rise of fascism. Mussolini and Hitler.
Authoritarian years in between the wars.
I mean, there's a lot of things we could do.
Well,
the European history teacher says yes.
I'm just going to, I'll go along.
Right.
I'll
you got Lindbergh in America.
That's in the interwars year. Yeah. Did you go back too far? Can't go back before U.S. history starts. What am I going to? No, you can actually. We probably should.
We're going to have to start.
There's lots of things we can talk about.
We actually, the requests that we get, in all honesty, the requests we get are long ago.
Yeah,
a lot of things I hear.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
That you guys know. That's why I don't show you the comments.
You can Google it. See, that's how it's actually going. Hey guys, you need to go back
under a fake fake account.
Joe Schmo. Wait a minute.
Well, guys, I think we better say class dismissed.
Class.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.